Hello, everybody. This is your writing mentor, Maggie Tran. And today I wanted to share some tips with you on how to write your peer reviews for your peers' projects. Without further ado, let's get started. So why should we be thinking about peer reviews in the first place? Remember that here in the Writers Studio, it's all about the community. And it is so crucial to connect with each other as writers. We're all growing together as writers. We're all picking up new skills, and we can do so much when we're together. Many other writing communities outside of the Writer Studio, outside of the university classroom, there's just so many writing communities out there who support each other and their own writings. There's Facebook groups and all kinds of communities out there that's focused on working together through feedback and collaboration. Feedback is one of the most important parts as you're revising your project, your essay, literally anything, because when we receive feedback from others, we can learn so much more about the work that we have turned out. Even the most experienced writers still need feedback from others to improve their work. When people are writing books or writing articles for big newspapers, they are still receiving feedback from editors or friends on how they can improve their work. So how does writing peer reviews help you? So when you review another writer's work, you automatically pick up new lessons about the writing, or you reinforce the old lessons that you already know. When you see examples of excellent work from others, as well as areas of improvement that you see, when you start writing your own paper, you somehow, it's like really magical. It's a magical feeling, but as you're writing your own work, already in the back of your head, you have an idea of what to work on as you're working on your own paper. So how does receiving peer reviews from others help you? As we have already said, a fresh reader can make observations on another person's writing that the writer themselves doesn't see. So let's say I've written a paper and I have submitted it to a peer, then that peer came back to me with their own feedback. In their feedback, they have observed so many things about my writing that even though I wrote that paper, I didn't even see it until my peer pointed it out. Your peers can see both areas of excellence and areas of improvement. And as you revise your paper, you can consider their feedback, but you make the final decisions because you own the work. You know your work the best. So how does writing peer reviews for your peers help them? So literally everything I just said in the previous slide, they will be so grateful for everything you've done with them. You've given them your time. You've offered compliments to uplift them and constructive suggestions so that they can improve their work. And when you give to a community, the community just grows stronger. It's a really awesome thing to see. So how do you complete the peer review assignment in Canvas? During the last term, there were like some technical issues and stuff, and some misunderstandings about how to complete the assignment. So I'll clarify everything. So when you get to the peer review assignment, you're going to open this rubric per peer. So if you're receiving two papers from two peers, so like total two papers, one from each peer, then you're going to have a rubric for each peer for each of their papers. So you're going to fill in all of the elements in the rubric. In this rubric right here, we can see that there's 5 elements. One of them is about audience awareness, introduction, and so on. So fill in all of the boxes here. And for each element, you're going to write at least a full paragraph in complete sentences. And I ask for at least a paragraph just so you have enough information for your peer. And if you want to see more details about each of the elements, there's a button down here that says view longer description. You can click that per element and it will provide you with more prompts and details regarding that specific section, so you can have more responses to write about. And all right, so fill in all elements, write a full paragraph for each element, view a longer description. Okay, so now how do you avoid technical issues with submission? So this is something I learned in the last term from a student who had technical issues. I learned that you cannot, based on what the student experienced, they couldn't save their progress and come back later. So what I would recommend is that when it's time to do the peer reviews, open the rubric, look at the prompts, see what each prompt is asking about, and then write your feedback in a Word document. Like just directly respond to each of the elements in a Word document. And then that way you always have a copy of your responses with you in case something happens. And then copy and paste the feedback from the Word document into each of the rubric's boxes in Canvas. And finally, you're going to save your rubric. And saving your rubric basically means you've submitted it for grading and you'll be all done. All right, what about the other parts of the peer review assignment? So do not put your feedback directly onto your peer's paper. You're already doing so much work with the rubric anyway, so just do the rubric. If you want to, you can write a summarized comment in the sidebar of the assignment. This is completely optional. The only required element are all the parts of the rubric. All right, so let's get into the tips. First, let's start off with what not to do when you're writing your peer responses. And I will explain all of these in further detail as we go on. Do not include only compliments. Also, do not include only suggestions. As we will see later, please include both compliments and suggestions for your peers. Do not answer with only simple yes or no responses. For example, don't say, yes, the introduction was clear, or yes, the student included enough examples. And that isn't specific enough. And again, we'll go into more detail as we go on. And also do not focus on any spelling or grammar issues. There's only so much we can help our peers with. And so the big picture elements are more important to focus on. It will save your time and it will save your peer time reading your responses. All right, here's tip number 1. Before writing your peer reviews, just keep in mind to start this process as early as possible, because your peers really appreciate getting feedback early. That way they have enough time to revise their writing before the project is due. Tip number 2, also before writing your peer reviews, be sure to review all of the components that the rubric is asking for. Also review the project requirements before reading your peer's project. That way, as you're reading your peer's paper, you know exactly what to look for and you'll know exactly what to write about in your peer reviews. Tip number 3, before writing your peer reviews, be sure to read your peer's paper fully. Take your time to read it, digest the information, try your best to understand what they're writing about. Also focus as you're reading, focus on the big picture elements. For example, how clearly does your peer deliver their message? Do they present the material in such a way that is organized and interesting to you? Is the thesis, AKA the main point of the paper, clear to you? And do they use a lot of examples to prove their thesis, to prove your point? All right, now here's tip number 4, as we're writing the peer reviews. So again, be sure to include both compliments and suggestions. It's really important to write balanced feedback. Compliments will uplift your writer and encourage them. People love to see that their hard work is being acknowledged. Also, suggestions are really important because those are the stepping stones towards improving one's essay. All right, tip number 5. This is again while writing your peer reviews. Be sure to pull out specific examples from your peer's paper to support your compliment or suggestion. Otherwise, your peers may not know exactly which areas you were talking about that were really good or needed improvement. Tip number 6, again, while writing your peer reviews, please be thoughtful of your words and be as kind as possible. Try not to write your words in a way that seems commanding. In an online environment, it is much harder than it is in real life to express our intentions with our emotions. So you might be writing something, but then it can appear as more cold than it really is. Even though you didn't intend to be cold, it appears to be that way for somebody else on the other side of the screen. So just be thoughtful of your words. Try to read your peer feedback to see if the tone is gentle and kind, or maybe there's some tweaking that needs to be done. All right, tip number 7, when writing your peer reviews, be sure to provide your own unique suggestions. You might ask them in a question format so that it is more polite and not as commanding. And the suggestions should be about the written work itself and not the writer. In other words, when you're suggesting something, don't make the subject of the suggestion the person, the writer. Just make it only about their work. And as we'll see in this example peer review that I wrote up, we'll see all of these tips in action. This is just a mock peer review I made as if Maggie, I know I'm Maggie, but I'm just pretending to write for another student named Maggie. So I wrote a peer review about the introduction of their paper. And yeah, I'll just read it. Maggie, you did an excellent job on your introduction. I enjoyed reading it. Your title, After a Games Shutdown, Here's Why Tech70 is still involved in its online legacy community on Twitter, is very attention grabbing because it made me curious as to why your public figure would still hang around after the game's closure. Your thesis about Tech70 contributing to the community because they appreciate the sense of belonging in there is very clear and heartwarming. However, I felt like I couldn't familiarize myself with the material that much as someone who doesn't know about Club Penguin. I would suggest adding more description about the game itself, Club Penguin. How is that related to the community on Twitter? Also, could the hook at the beginning of the paragraph be more attention grabbing? Perhaps you could include a fun and surprising fact about Tech70's Twitter account as a potential example. So let me point out some things about this mock peer review based on what we've been learning about writing quality peer reviews. So I began the peer review with really nice compliments, like genuine, honest, and nice compliments about the introduction of this student's paper. You did an excellent job. I enjoyed reading it. When the peer is reading this review, they can see that, oh yes, this person thinks I did a good job on my essay. I'm so excited. I feel good about it. And that by starting off with compliments, you leave a good impression immediately. All right, and then this section is where I include all the compliments. As you can see, they're all very specific. I quoted their title. I said it was attention grabbing. I was very specific as to why it was attention grabbing. And I also restated the thesis. That way they have seen that their thesis is clear and that I have successfully picked up their thesis. All right, and then this section is where I include suggestions for my peer. I said I couldn't familiarize myself with the material at the beginning because I don't know much about Club Penguin. And then where I would suggest adding more description about the game. That I stated it in such a way that it is as gentle as possible. I didn't say, hey, add more description about the game Club Penguin. I began the sentence with, I would suggest adding more description. And I asked them another question, how was that related to the community on Twitter? That way they can get an idea of what to include in their introduction to strengthen it. Another suggestion I had was to improve the hook at the beginning of the paragraph so that it is more attention grabbing. As you can see, I put that suggestion in a question format. Could the hook at the beginning of the paragraph be more attention grabbing? That way, when your peer reads this suggestion, it is something that they can consider, and it's not a command. It definitely doesn't feel like a command. It's just something that they could be thinking about as they are improving their their introduction. And I also included a specific potential improvement that they could use in their paper. I said, perhaps you could include a fun and surprising fact about Tech70's Twitter account as a potential example. That way, when they read your peer review, they're like, oh, all right, maybe I could use a surprising fact about Tech70's Twitter account. It's a very specific suggestion, but it's just a potential example, and they could use other attention grabbing hooks if they wanted. All right, thank you so much for watching this video on writing peer reviews. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot, and have fun writing the peer reviews, have fun reading your peers' papers, and enjoy being a part of this wonderful community at the Writer Studio. Thank you.